On our 1987 Buick T-Type that we're building up here in Sam's garage, we're going to be using a Tuff Stuff starter, and we're using one of their chrome ones. Now this is a 3 horsepower starter, and the cool thing is that normally this starter in an LS motor would sit with the motor sitting up. That's how a factory location is. But this is one of the rotational starters. Okay, so basically you can put it on in many different ways. It's got holes all the way around. And it's going to be perfect for us because ours, due to our turbo manifold, the motor is going to have to go down for it to clear our piping. And as you can see, this is chrome. Anytime you guys are installing a gear reduction starter, you have to make sure that you've got good power and good ground. And right here, you see that there is no chrome. They've scraped it off. That way, when you put your aluminum bracket on, which is raw metal, it's going to go on contact right there, and that's going to work as your ground. So what you have to make sure is to supply a very good, big 1 to 2 gauge, maybe 2 to 4 gauge power wire for the starter, so it gets plenty of power. But you have to remember that your power is only as good as your ground is. So you have to put the same thick cable on both sides of the block, making sure that the starter has plenty of power to be able to turn that motor. With these high compression motors these days being direct injected, you're going to need all the power you can get from your starter. Now you guys all know about Tuff Stuff. Their motto, "Our chrome will get you home." That's because they provide ground straps for their components, because once you chrome plate something, there's not going to be a good ground. So that's why their chrome will get you home. They've been made right here in Cleveland, Ohio for almost 40 years. And they've got all the popular finishes like chrome, polished, cast plus, black. And we decided to go with the chrome one on ours just to add a little bit of bling. I'm going to go ahead and install it. I'm going to do it one at a time actually to make this easier for myself. Put it up in there, motor down. Okay. And you know, Tuff Stuff doesn't only make starters. They've got everything for your need, your project. They've got brake boosters, AC compressors, starters, brake line kits, master cylinders. They've got everything you need for your project to get you on the road and get you looking good. Now, as you can see, because I rotated the engine, the motor on the starter down, it clears the oil pan, it bolts up perfectly, and my exhaust pipe from my turbo manifold comes across and will go over to this driver's side so that the turbocharger will actually get pressure. Now, it's very important that when you guys are installing a gear reduction starter, that you take some measurements as far as the clearance between the shaft coming out to the flywheel and the clearance on the block itself. Now, Tuff Stuff will also provide you the bolts and the shims you need to install your starter properly on your car, whether it be a Ford, Dodge, or GM. So make sure, if you guys are building a car and you want some bling, but more importantly, you want reliability and power, check out Tuff Stuff. Okay, now that we have our starter installed, I'm gonna go ahead and make up some cables, and I got a couple tips for you guys. Like I said, you wanna use a heavy cable, 2 gauge, 4 gauge. Don't wanna use alt gauge or 1 gauge. So, I've got my end on, I've got my heat shrink on. The hardest part of this whole job is gonna be turning on this little torch, okay? Heat that up, and you guys, you're gonna have to make sure that you make a very reliable crimp here. And these fittings that we're using are very heavy and fat, so you have to have special tools. Most of you guys may not have a special tool at home, okay? But you can see this is brass, and it is thick. So you get your wire, get the shielding off, put the connector on. We all have a hammer at home, and this is very simple and one of the most reliable methods of making sure your crimp don't come off. Just take that. So now, just like the other side, we put our heat shrink on, heat it up, make it look just as pretty as the other end. Power and ground, they're very high quality, so we're gonna use the same gauge power wire, cutting this in half, making sure we got 2 good, strong grounds, and also make sure that you scrape off the metal, the paint, any debris that's on the block and the car, so that you have a good, proper ground. And for all of us who are building custom cars, you have to remember that you're gonna be painting your car, coating the motor, so those coatings and paint have to come off to have a good, reliable ground, because your voltage is only as good as your ground. So when you guys are doing custom work, make sure to check out Tuff Stuff, because their chrome will get you home.